Hello my friends, welcome back to another tutorial. I know it's been a while, it has been a while. We're going through a very bad heat wave over here in Ireland and across Europe. So every day for the past 2 weeks it has been scorching. Up in the high 20s, low 30s Celsius, so it's very, very hot. The studio outside is just like a sauna. Even if I tried to film outside, it's still very, very hot and very, very sticky, so it's impossible to record. I'm in my kitchen, it's still very warm, but it's better than being out there. It's absolutely roasting. So I apologise for taking so long for a tutorial. It's just been hectic. And of course, when you're off work, out enjoying the fine weather and all that kind of stuff, trying to make the most of the sunny weather that we have, because we don't get much of it here in Ireland. So look, I'm going to do a nice tutorial here. It's a beautiful, something completely different to what we were doing in the past couple of weeks. We did a lot of seascapes and sunsets. I'm now going to do a beautiful kind of a woodland scene with a waterfall, something nice and colourful. So I have my canvas here on my board with my palette, a little sketch, I have a little picture behind me here, I don't know if you can see or not, a lovely little waterfall with some autumn colours up on the top. So we're going to try that. I hope you enjoy, and I hope you're enjoying the sun wherever you are as well. Okay, let's have a bit of fun with this painting. Okay, my friends, here we go. Lovely picture. There's a reference photograph. Isn't that lovely? Something different, something colourful. A little bit of water to cool us down. Isn't that right? Okay, 16 by 12 canvas, primed once, sanded lightly, and a very light sketch. All right. My colours: titanium white, cadmium yellow pale, Naples yellow, burnt sienna, cerulean blue, phthalo blue, burnt umber, magenta, cadmium red, and I need one more, lamp black. Need some lamp black as well. I like a bit of lamp black. Okay, so look, let's start and have a bit of fun with this. I'm going to dampen my brush here in some turpentine. All right, I have a little turpentine with linseed oil in a little jar. All right, that's all. I use that for tinting my paints. Up here, lots of bright colours. Now I'm going to start off with a darker colour and introduce lights into it. All right, that's generally how I like to paint my trees. So I'm going to go for some burnt sienna, some burnt umber, maybe a little magenta. Let's have a look at that now, and perhaps a little cadmium yellow. That'll give us a nice autumn colour, won't it? Just keep adding more and more paint until you're happy. All right, let's try this. Okay, now it may be a little thin. If you find your paint is a little on the thin side, just simply keep adding more and more paint. That'll thicken it up. A little bit more magenta. You could probably even add a touch of black as well if you wanted to. And that will kind of help it go that kind of muddy brown colour. That's the colour I'm after, because I like to keep my darks as well. So for that reason, I'm going to go with a nice strong colour for the background, okay? A bit of this. Now, even a bit more black. And as you're going, you can change colours. A little touch of yellow. That will give us a nice dark, kind of a muddy green colour. Okay? I'm going to fill the background in with this colour. And it's quite thin. It's not very, very thick, all right? Not very thick. And as I was saying earlier, even the canvas is warm to touch. It's so hot. It's so, so hot. It's roasting over here in Ireland. It's absolutely roasting. So it's very difficult to do any kind of painting, really, let alone go outdoors with an easel. I'd be burned alive. So it's been very difficult to find the right time to do a tutorial the past 2 weeks, because the weather was just so hot. It was very hot inside, very hot outside, and there was just nowhere to cool down. So I just avoided a tutorial for that reason, just that reason alone. Now I'm going to take some phthalo blue, add a bit of dark green in up here. So it's just mixing colours as you go. Just add a little bit of this, a little bit of that. That's all really. Look, some black and some cadmium yellow. That'll give us a nice dark green. And it's just mixing with the brown, then you see, giving us lovely little shades. Now I do want to keep it nice and dark above the waterfall, just to show off the lights on the water. So you can see now that's very rough, isn't it? See, it's very loose. Just be very, very loose with your brush. Because the fun comes next, all right? The fun comes next. Now I'm going to just add a few darker touches here and there. So some lamp black, some phthalo blue, and a little hint of, let's go cadmium red. I just want to add a few hints of dark colour here and there. And not only that, we want to keep it dark, I also want to add a bit of distance to it. So what I'm going to do is take some phthalo blue with little white. And you can see now all these colours I'm mixing on my palette, okay? I'm taking little bits of each colour. I want to put a very soft green just up at the corner there. I just want to add a little touch of distance into the painting, that's all, nothing else. Okay, I'm going to go with a couple of darker greens, some black and some yellow. Black and yellows give you that very rich dark green, maybe a hint of burnt umber just to warm it slightly. It gives you a lovely green, burnt umber, black and a little yellow, or even just black and yellow on its own. So these are going to be my green trees. Now they could be the light or yellow ones as well, but it's just to add a little bit of tone into the painting as we're going along, okay? You see what I mean? Just little splotches of dark here and there. Now, that's fine. We will be ending up covered most of this, so don't worry about all these little things here, okay? I might use this brush. I'm going to give this a quick clean, just dip it in turpentine, give it a quick rub on some tissue. And I know that looks very dark there now, doesn't it? On camera even. So let me just brighten it ever so slightly. I think it needs a brighten. Is that a bit much? Maybe a little much. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Let's go with that. With my clean dry brush, I'm going to now go into some rich bright colours. Okay, I'm going to start with some yellow and a little burnt sienna. Okay. Now when I'm putting on my layer, this layer, I generally don't thin my paints because it sits nicely on top of this thin layer. So look, I have a nice rich colour here. And what I'm going to do is just start. I want to start it now just to test it out first, okay? I'm just testing. So I'm just going to go along now and just see how it feels, okay? That's the thing, see how it feels. If you're happy with it, then keep going. Little bit of yellow, and I'm using just a corner of my brush, okay? Now you can also use a fan brush for this if you like. A fan brush would be a good idea, but I think just for now, this very moment, I'm going to use this brush just to get some texture on the canvas, that's all. There's no other reason for this, just really to create some texture. And what I'm doing is simply, I'm going over that kind of loose paint and just mixing it up a little, that's all. So I'm getting rid of all those little brush strokes. You see what I mean? This is just the first layer. I will be putting much sharper, brighter colours on top of this very, very soon. Let me get some cadmium red and cadmium yellow. I'm going to go with a nice warm autumn colour. Now if it does help, you can leave your canvas dry if you wish. You can leave it all dry in and put on these highlights on top if you're having trouble getting the colours to stay, by all means. But I am really going to go to town with all of these colours up here. I'm really going to go to town. So just bear with me, it's a slow process, it takes time. But let's just try and have a bit of fun as we're doing it, okay? Lots of yellow, lots of cadmium red. I want to get some nice rich autumn colours here and there, look. I'll just move my brush around very randomly. Now we're also going to be using later on the palette knife as well. So we're going to be getting lots of thick paint on with the palette knife. I'm just going over all this undercoat now. Let's just call it an undercoat for now, okay? Let's just call it that. And I slowly then build my layers up, you see? I'm building and building and building all the time. My main goal right now is to get rid of all those kind of brush strokes underneath. So we're using that colour underneath, you see. So that creates a nice base for us to work on. It gives us a kind of a medium shade to work on, and we can put dark and light through it then. So I'll just keep going as we are. I can see that like there's a lot of beautiful rich oranges up there, isn't there? Yellowy oranges in that autumn shade. I'll get that on now, I think, with maybe a fan brush, I'm not sure. But look, I have a lot of it covered like that. The next thing I'm going to do is, firstly, I'm going to suggest a couple of branches. A couple of small branches, that kind of thing. So I have my nice small brush here, small pointy brush, and I go with some burnt umber, I suppose. Just burnt umber on its own, that should be okay. And I'm just going to put a couple of small squiggly branches popping through here and there. All right? Don't forget, a lot of this will be covered with paint. So it's just the odd one or two, that's all. Okay, that's plenty. You probably can't really see them now very much on camera. Let me take a bit of black and try a little bit of black in one or two of them. Okay, right, let's get a fan brush and try this with a fan brush. So I have a nice little fan brush here. And what I'm going to do maybe is start probably with some of the greens, yes? I'm going to dampen this, take some phthalo blue, and we need plenty of turpentine in this, okay? That's the trick to getting this to stick really well, especially with the fan brush. Now I have a lovely rich green, look at that. Mix lots of it there, take a little turpentine, that just really loads up your fan brush nicely. And let's have a look at this now, look. Let's just pop with the corner of our brush a couple of hints of that lovely green, you see? Just here and there. So you can start to see it coming out, can't you? It's all coming to life. Go up here with a couple of nice greens. Mixing them through, you see? Don't be shy. Don't be shy when doing this at all, okay? I know that first initial stage can be very daunting and you may almost be afraid to mess up your painting, but honestly, don't be afraid, just try it. Now, a little bit more up there. And it's just, you see, it's just a very light suggestion of some little bits of greens showing through here and there. Now, I'll stop at that. I'll stand back and have a really good look. Then I'm going to clean my fan brush. Take all this lovely green off my fan brush. Then I get some nice bright yellow on my palette again. Cadmium yellow. Let's try mixing some of those lovely warm oranges. See those lovely rich colours. You could try, let's just try it and see, some burnt sienna and lots of cadmium yellow. Okay, now again, a little drop of turpentine just to break the paint down. It just helps to break the paint down just that bit and makes it more creamy. Okay, if you're using thick paint on its own with a palette knife, it's fine. But with a brush, I find just that little bit of thinners really helps to just kind of break down the paint a little bit. Now let's try this. Okay, we have a nice one here in the middle, don't we? So I'm just going to start with the basic shapes first. And what I'm going to do then is use maybe the palette knife later to go with some real strong yellows. All right, so I'm just using like a medium shade, let's say. Okay, I took some cadmium red in there. That's a nice color, a nice warm autumny color. I'm just using the corner of my brush going around in like a semicircle sort of motion, okay? Filling all this in between your greens. It's very, very random, isn't it? All these colours. There's lots of just random colours up there. Now you could take some cadmium red on its own with some burnt sienna. That'll give you a nice warm, see, nice warm, ready brown colour. Pop some of that in here and there as well. So you can see the idea. I'm just starting to build up brighter and brighter colours all the time. I think the final step will be with palette knife. I think that'll give me probably the brightest colour I need. I'll take a little bit of white into that. I don't want to kind of overdo it with the white because it tends to make the colour very chalky and it loses its richness. So I'm being very careful with the white. I don't want to go too much with the white. Just very, very carefully. Okay, now if you find it's getting a little, it's losing its power a little bit, just go back in and pick up lots of colour, okay? It's all just a suggestion, that's all. And look, don't worry if it's not perfect, okay? Look, it's a painting. It's never going to be absolutely 100%. You'll never be happy with it completely. That's what I've learned about painting. You'll never be happy completely with your painting, just as long as you enjoy it and perhaps learn a few little bits as you go along. Okay, now I'm going to stop it at that. I'm going to use my palette knife, I think, for the rest. Just for the final bright, rich colours, okay? Let's try it. I'm going to go with, we'll try this palette knife first, yes? Let's take some cadmium yellow, lots of cadmium yellow, and a little burnt sienna. And this is where now we get really pure with the colour, okay? Very, very rich. A little cadmium red as well. Now, see, just being very random with the palette knife. Just leave it, dance off of your palette knife a little bit here and there. And sure, look, we're creating some lovely movement in the trees, aren't we? Bit of cadmium red. Little cadmium red just to really, see, just go for it. Let's just have a bit of fun. And it doesn't matter that it doesn't look exactly like the photograph, okay? I don't mind. I don't want it to look like the photograph. I want it to look like my painting. But I'm just using the photograph as a reference, just to kind of pick out where those little lights may be and all that kind of thing, okay? So just remember that. It's just a reference photograph. A lot of people may like to try and create a photograph type of a painting from it. And that's fine. Absolutely. Try that. But for me, there's no fun in that. I prefer to just kind of put my own mark on it. Now I'm getting some bright yellow. Look, yellow with a little bit of white. And I'm going to just perhaps try and catch some of the light on some of the leaves here and there. Take a hint of cadmium red in that, just to warm it ever so slightly. You could actually, I suppose, probably call this a palette knife painting of trees, if you wanted to, since most of it is done with the palette knife in the end anyway. But you could absolutely even just use a palette knife to create all this lovely texture up here. Now I'm going to leave it at that. I think that's all we need. I could try and create some of that lovely rich orangey colour that's in there. Let's try some burnt sienna, some cadmium red and yellow, and see if we can create that wonderful orangey colour. A little bit more red. It's a very vibrant colour, isn't it? I may come back to that colour later. Just pop a little of that rich browny kind of shades in here and there as well. Okay, now I'm just going to turn my tissue, which is very dirty, and I'm going to move on to this lovely darkness in here. I'll use my regular flat brush that I just used, and I'll go into some, let me see now. It's a kind of a very dark, blacky, and a bit of green showing through, isn't there? So let's try that. I'll take some sienna as well. So we're creating our own painting here, okay? We're going it our own way. Let's take some burnt umber, a little phthalo blue, and let's just first fill in this. It's a very mucky, very dark, mucky shadow colour, okay? Now to create the idea of the shadow and the shade, I'm adding plenty of blue into this, all right? Plenty of phthalo blue. And I might even try and create some mist in this painting as well, which would be quite nice. Then we have a nice piece jetting out like that. Let's take a hint of cadmium yellow and pop it in. Then get some burnt umber, add a bit of burnt umber in there. Now I'm going to take some white into that, pop a little bit of light greeny colour through that, okay? Just to create a little bit of light, misty kind of a feel down the end of that waterfall. Okay, now I'll do the same over here, but this side. I'm going to take some burnt umber, little phthalo blue, and perhaps a hint of cadmium yellow. It's more of a greeny kind of a hue, isn't it? Perhaps a hint of burnt umber, burnt sienna, a bit of... You see this creating this lovely green bank over here. It's a lot of fun. Now as it comes down, I'm going to take some cerulean blue with some Naples yellow. Okay? Even a hint of magenta. That gives us that nice misty, soft kind of a misty look, doesn't it? Add a bit over here as well. Okay, now I'm going to mix a nice soft grey. Blue, white, some magenta. And a hint of cadmium red, okay? I just want to put that down in here. There's actually quite an amount of a pink hue in this, isn't there? I can see a lot of pink in this. Come down the centre, and all this then softens in, you see? I'm softening it all through. I want to kind of create that lovely misty feel towards the end of the waterfall in here, to it's all nice and kind of merging together, nice and soft. And I'll come over here and I'll even bring that across. Using little circular motions with my brush, just to create that nice little mist. Okay. We're learning. I'm learning as we go along. Learning something new all the time. Now some magenta, some cerulean blue and a little white. I want to create that little mist. As it comes up. Okay. Now I dropped my brush. Do forgive me. I'm very clumsy with brushes. Now I'm going to start maybe using my fan brush to create some nice texture on this. So I think I'll start with some of this orangey colour, okay? Little thinners. Take some of this yellow and I might take a hint of phthalo blue. Create some nice little, just autumn colours. And it's really just texture, okay? Because it's just covered in moss and all that kind of stuff, isn't it? So you're not going to see individual little rocks and stones and all that kind of thing, are you really? It's just to create lots and lots of texture on the rock face. Do you understand what I mean? Coming down into that. The fan brush is probably the easiest way. You could use a palette knife and try doing it like that, but I find the fan brush is just a nice random kind of a brush, isn't it? It gives you very random effects when you need them. Now there's one thing I need to do. I'm going to put a very dark blue, a very dark purpley blue, just in underneath all of that, okay? Bit of black, and I want to pop a very dark purpley colour in under there. Magenta, blue and a bit of black. I can see it gets very dark in there, doesn't it? Bit more black. Soften it then with the tip of your brush up into that colour, okay? Just like that. Okay, I think that looks good. Let's take some white and some magenta. Let's lighten this mist, add a bit of pink into it. So you can see I'm just going across, I'm doing it in stages, okay? It's all done in stages. I tend to just kind of focus on one piece at a time. A little bit down here. And you see the way I'm kind of moving my paint around as well. I'm moving it around with my brush. Okay. Now, all right. I'll go back to my fan brush, add a few darks in there. I'm going to take some burnt umbers even, perhaps a little bit of black, okay? Burnt umber and some black. And just pop a couple of darks in here and there. Okay, now I'll give it a quick clean again. And I want to take some very bright yellow and just pop a little bright yellow just across the top here and there. I really just only want to separate the two, okay? The top from the background trees. And I'm going to make it kind of fall downwards slightly. Like so. Okay. There you go. I'm happy enough with that. Or you can add all your own details into this if you want to. I don't feel the need to add loads of details. I really don't. I want to take some of this nice orange colour and just start adding some little bits and pieces over here. Again, it's just texture, that's all. How about some burnt sienna? Let's get some burnt sienna in there. So the idea of this tutorial really is to show you how you can just keep it loose and, you know, not overcomplicate things too much. I hope I'm achieving that actually. I really do. So not overcomplicating things far too much, just keep it nice and light and simple. Little touches of greens coming through in under the water as well. Now I'll do the same with some black and a bit of burnt umber as well. A couple of darks, because it's lovely and dark in there, isn't it? And that shadow really has, that darkness has a real mysterious feel about it, doesn't it? Now, in here where you have all these little bits of water, there's a nice darkness in there. It's quite difficult to achieve, so I'm going to go with black and some magenta, and I'm just going to fill this in my fan brush like this, okay? And that's giving me the feeling of the rocks kind of being dragged, kind of falling downwards. See that? Some burnt umber with some black. And then when I come to put my water over these, we'll have that lovely movement coming down. I hope. I do hope. Okay, let's get some nice light up here. Let's get some cadmium yellow, burnt sienna. Let's just pop impressions of some nice little lights popping down. Could be little bits of this and bits of that. And then it gets us cadmium yellow on its own. It almost merges into the background up there, doesn't it? Okay. I think I'll leave it now. You can see a bit of a sheen on that. You see that from the window? Let me pull the blind down slightly. I think that helps. I think that helps a little. I'm going to catch some of this yellow and I'm going to start to drag it. Now it's a bit bright. Let me mix a nice bright green. Okay, I'm going to kind of drag some of that down, as if there's these long little bits of greenery hanging down, okay? And this is lovely now while the paint is wet. Perfect. Now I may be skipping through this a little bit quickly, but I do want to try and get this done in one recording, hopefully. I like to get things done in kind of one recording most of the time, because I know you're anxious to see part 2 and all that kind of thing, so I am going to try and get this finished just in one tutorial. If I have to come back to it and finish other little bits and pieces another time, I will. But let's just see how we go anyway, okay? Now a little bit of green in there for that center. Okay. Right, we're almost down as far as the water, my friends. Almost. We're almost there. Let me see now, what should I do next? Okay, I might block in some of this with a dark purpley colour for the underneath of that bright water. Magenta, phthalo blue and some white. And again, plenty of magenta, maybe a hint of cadmium red as well, just to warm it slightly. This will be just for some of the darks on the water, okay, that's all. Some of those darks. Okay, I think I'll start doing the waterfall. Now, there's a few different ways we can do the waterfall. We can use our fan brush, or we could use a simple flat brush, like this, for example. There's lots of different ways. I think we'll try, firstly, with this soft brush, yes? I think we should. Let me turn my tissue around here so it's nice and clean. And let's start up on top up here. We have some nice, now we have some little bits as well that we could use an even smaller brush for. Okay, so we have small stubby brush. Let's mix a nice bright mauve, phthalo blue, magenta, and lots of white. Now this could go two ways. It could be completely disastrous, or it might be okay. I'm hoping it's okay, but let's try. Okay, now more white into that, make it nice and bright, and I still see a lot of pink in there. I seem to be drawn to the pink colours on the photograph. There's a lot of bright pinks in there. Let's just go and start with the edge of my brush, pulling them down. And the trick with this now, because it's wet into wet, is keep cleaning the tip of your brush, because you will keep picking up all those little darks in there. So be very careful with those and just keep rubbing the tip of your brush off of your paper towel just to keep it clean. And you see I'm just kind of dragging it down, just trying to create the impression of the water thinning out as it comes down, okay? That's all I'm trying to do really. There's a little bit showing through here. You could use a fan brush or something for this if you wanted. I just want to get the small ones done with my small brush, and then I'll move on to my fan brush for some of the thicker ones. So like for instance down here, a couple of nice small ones coming off of the rocks. You could even use the brush on flat. Okay, I'm just taking my time. There's no rush. You can at home, you can take all the time you need. And of course we will have a palette knife as well to be used. We can use the palette knife as well for a lot of this. So don't worry, we'll get through it. Okay, I'll switch to my slightly bigger brush. Let's try it with a slightly bigger one. Now that I have some of the smaller ones finished, take some cadmium red, some magenta, lots and lots of white. We have a nice pinky colour here, okay? Let me just try pulling it down. Okay, yeah, it's coming on nicely. I'm happy enough with that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is create some nice thinned out water with my fan brush, okay? I'm going to try it. Let's try it. Come on. Let's get some of that nice warm pinky colour. Let's try creating some of this nice thinned out water coming down. It's tricky when I'm working wet into wet with this kind of thing. Normally I would probably let this dry so I can show the brush strokes properly. So it's quite difficult to do when this is very sort of all kind of wet. You see what I mean? Because the colours are just constantly merging together. Let's move on to this other side over here, and we can really get some nice bright colours with this one. I'm going to take some magenta, some white, and a little Naples yellow. That's going to give me a nice bright colour. Okay, just like that. Now I'm going to fill it in with this colour first, and then we can lighten it. Now I'm being careful not to completely cover those darks underneath, because we need some of those. I'm going to go right through this rock for now, and we'll cut in front of that then with the rock later on, alright? Take a bit more cadmium red, get some nice warm pinks. Okay. It's not bad. I really should have gotten a smaller fan brush. It would have been perfect for this. But this picture I've decided to do really at the last minute. So I didn't have the kind of proper fan brushes that I really wanted to have to do it, which is a shame, but it's okay, it don't matter. Okay, now I put a little touch of one up there, like that, kind of popping out. Then I'm going to go really bright with this one over here. I'm giving my fan brush a really good clean now for this, because I'm going to take some white with Naples yellow. Now, not too much Naples yellow. You want a very, very bright whitey white, okay? Kind of a yellowy white, a very luminous white. And Naples yellow tends to do that. Okay, just like that. Another bit there, a little touch of it there, perhaps. Let's go right at the edge now with some nice bright colour and go right over. Like that. Okay, now I'll do some more of that over here. So the idea is, if you think it looks okay in one spot, then you can use the same technique for the other side. Let's go up here and get some real bright colours. It's almost merging, okay? We're just leaving the centre. Okay, that's not bad. Now there's one last thing I'm going to try. I'm going to try doing this with the palette knife, just a little bit. I'm going to take some, let me see, let's just get pure white. Okay, I'm going to grab some on the edge of my palette knife like this, and I'm just going to catch and drag it over, okay? I'm going to take a hint of cadmium yellow in that. Little touch of cadmium yellow, that should really catch the light, shouldn't it? There we go. That seems to catch some of it a little bit better, doesn't it? Now, let me create one or two. Down the end. Okay. So I think I'm going to just take some white on the tip of my brush and just maybe catch one or two little lights with that. Especially up around the top up here. Okay, maybe one or two just in here. All right. Now I'm going to take as well my palette knife. I'm going to get some brown, burnt umber, some cadmium yellow, and I'm simply going to cut in front of this up here, like that. Okay, maybe a bit of black. I'm just going to cut in front of some of that waterfall, like so. Because you can see there's little touches of bits of yellow and stuff like that. Bits of greenery, I presume. Little leaves, plants, all that kind of thing. Just showing through, popping out here and there. Sometimes I'd be afraid I might ruin it. But you know something, if you don't try, you're not going to know, are you? If you don't try it. I could have just left it and played safe. I know it was fine, don't get me wrong. But I thought, you know what? Let's take a risk every now and then. Let's not be shy. Let's go for it, take a risk. A bit of a risk every now and then is no harm at all. Okay, you see? Just a little bit of a risk. And the thing about it is, if you don't try it, you're never going to know, are you? That's what I've kind of come to learn, especially with painting. If you don't try it, you're never going to learn, and you're never going to know if you can do it or not. So I say, just go for it. At the end of the day, it's just paint. That's all. Now I need to cut in front of this one here, okay? Going to get my small flat brush, some more yellow on my palette, and let's get some yellow with a little hint of black and a hint of burnt sienna. That burnt sienna is very strong, isn't it? Touch of blue actually. Now, disappears up into it, doesn't it? I'm just going to fill that in, and then I'm going to add some really dark colour in behind it, okay? Right in underneath that. Even some phthalo blue, that'll give you a nice bit of a shadow, see? Don't know if you can see this or not now, but it gives you a nice shadow in underneath, in behind. Let that just disappear in to the water. I go very dark, just down here. And I need to add a little bit of darkness as well, just along the fronts of these, where they come down by the water. Just dabbing my brush around, look, very randomly. Okay. And then what I do next after that is take some of this bright colour and just drag some of that over in front, okay? Just to help kind of merge it in behind the waterfall. You see? Just like that. I think that works. Now my next job, just for that rock there, is to take some light colour. I'll take some cadmium yellow and a touch of burnt sienna. And I just want to catch the highlights on some of them, okay? See? Just little wiggly lines here and there, just to catch the highlights. And then I come in front of it again with the next rock behind it, you see? Like that. Now, of course, you could use a palette knife for this if you want. It would look absolutely fine. See? Just dab, 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 dab. Dab, dab, dab with your brush. Take some very bright colour, little touch of yellowy white, just to catch one or two of the final highlights in there. So you can see now why the darks are so important. Okay, the darks help show off the brights, you see? I might merge it back in slightly. I may have overcooked it slightly. So let me just get some yellow and sienna and just soften it back in ever so slightly. There we go. Now, that's better. I go even with some black and put some black in there. Soften it through. And some phthalo blue. Phthalo blue is our friend. Lots of phthalo blue. There we go. Just create that nice darkness. Okay, I think I'm done with that. I'm going to leave it for fear of ruining our lovely painting. I'm going to come up, just up to the top there of the waterfall and just pop a little, one or two here and there in front of some of the water, just to kind of set the water back in slightly. Does that make sense? Just to push the water ever so slightly back. There we go. Just in some parts. Right. Moving on down. Here we go. I think that's most of the intricate work done. Okay, we can kind of relax now and we can just enjoy the rest of the painting. And I think it's fairly straightforward from here on, to be quite honest. I'm going to get my medium flat brush again, but a lovely turquoise in here. I'm going to take some white, some turquoise, and a bit of magenta, okay? Lovely combination. There we go. When I say turquoise, cerulean blue, okay? A bit of cerulean. Let's get some cerulean blue in here. Now remember, this needs to be nice and rich, okay? Because these lovely swirls of white, we really want to be able to see those. So make it nice and rich. Look, a little bit of phthalo as well. And more cerulean, more phthalo, a little bit more magenta, making it nice and pinky. Very random look. Okay, that's really the kind of most of the blocking in, I think, done. I'm going to take some phthalo blue and some magenta and a little black. Just want to pop a little darkness in here and there. Just around here and there, okay? Just a little bit of it. Just to add a little bit of tone, a little bit of hue. You see, just look, little swirls of dark colour. Don't go crazy, you don't have to go mad with this. I'll take some phthalo blue, cerulean and some black. And I'm going to create a small little bit of a waterfall here. Okay? And it just kind of comes up and it swirls all over the place, doesn't it? Now we're going to use some white next, and we're going to really add some drama to this water. Okay? I could even use the same brush. I mean, the brush is pretty good, really. Let's take some white on the tip of our brush. Lots of thick white paint, pure paint, nothing else, okay? And I'm going to just go in and around here and just start kind of sitting all of this down with some white. You see the way I'm kind of just dabbing my brush and almost wiggling it and swirling it around. I'm imagining the water just being very rough and swirly, okay? See what I mean? Just allow it all to kind of merge in and swirling around. Now up here, there's a lot of it up here, isn't there? What I'm going to do up here is take some white and just start going around in circles. Okay, creating that mist. Soften it up then. Very gently with the edge of your brush. You see, creating a lovely mist over in that corner. And thin it out as it goes up, just leave it disappear into that darker colour, you see? Very gently touching the canvas. Now, I have a soft brush, I'm just going to soften very gently into that, okay? See, just a touch. Now, going back to our white. Okay, we have a little swirl of it coming down like that. And then it turns around and it swoops across like that, doesn't it? Now you could use a palette knife, would actually be excellent for this. I might use my palette knife in a moment for this because this would be brilliant altogether, creating lots of movement on that water. Palette knife would be just perfect for this. First, I just want to get some nice movement with my brush, okay? And of course your fan brush would be perfect for this as well. You see how it's all just very loose. Now, let's take our fan brush, get some white, and let's just create that lovely movement. See that? It's coming on nicely, isn't it? To be honest, I haven't painted a waterfall in so long. It's been probably well over 12 months since I last painted a waterfall, so I'm quite happy with this. Okay, it's not my best forte in painting waterfalls. Waterfalls are very tricky. It's not something that I would paint a lot, to be quite honest. But, you know, it's certainly fun trying. It's certainly fun to try, I must say. A nice bit of mist up there. Dab that in. See, just dab it along. Create a little bit of mist. Same here. Create a nice mist at the bottom of this. Soften it through. Okay. Now I need to add a hint of green into this. I'm not happy with the colour. I think it needs to reflect some of the greens. Do you think so? I think it might be a good idea if I introduced a couple of dark green, a little bit of dark green into the water just here and there. I think it might improve. Take a bit of yellow, perhaps, just introduce a little hint of reflection from the green. Then I'm going to go onto my palette knife. Okay, I'm going to grab some white from my palette knife, and I'm just going to literally go to town with this. Now, I need a bit of darker colour. That's much too bright. I'm going to go with Phthalo Blue, Cerulean Blue, and a little burnt umber perhaps. And I'm going to drag that nice dark colour down, like that, look. It's a bit better now, isn't it? It's a just a very rough water, isn't it? It's all about just having a bit of fun with it, that's all. That's the reason we're doing this. It's all for a bit of fun. Okay, I think I leave it for fear of spoiling it and making a mess, okay? Because that's what could exactly happen. The more you go at something, the more likely you are to overdo it and just make a mess of it. So I'm going to leave it at that. Let's just do this rock. My friends, we're almost home and dry. I have to say I really enjoyed this. I'm going to just mix a nice rich dark green for this. Let's get some phthalo blue, some black, and lots of yellow. Make a nice rich dark green and perhaps add a touch of burnt sienna. Okay? A nice dark colour. As you know, I like to just fill in all of this with a nice rich dark colour and then start putting our lights on top of it. There we go. Get some cadmium yellow. Pop some cadmium yellow in there. Just mixing it up. Now I want to go really dark. I want to get some black, burnt umber. I want to go really dark in here. Some burnt sienna. Okay. Next, I'm going to just really, with my fan brush, start adding some texture to this. And it's really very simple, okay? Do try it. Let's just take a fan brush. Nice clean fan brush. And it's just a case of going right into your colour. So take some yellow. Now a little bit of thinners will help, and some burnt sienna. If you want to leave it dry a little bit, you can. I'm just going to go into the colour just like that, look. Add some highlights, a bit more sienna. And then soften it backwards into the darks, you see? See the way now, just allowing the paint to disappear back into that darker colour. Just creating a nice texture on the rock. It's basically like a rock covered with greenery. That's probably the easiest way of describing it. Let's get some more yellow. And let's just kind of adapt it slightly. Look, let's just make it go up and down just a little bit here and there. It's not going to be perfectly straight and smooth. I'll come down here and create maybe a different layer. And then soften that one back. So now we already have a different layer, you see. Take some more yellow again, go over here. Soften that one back. Okay. And my friends, it's really as simple as that. It really is. I'll take some black and some burnt umber. I'll just go down here and just create impressions of little bits of rock and that kind of thing, just showing out at the end. And it has to be nice and dark, especially down at the bottom, okay? Nice and rich and dark. We'll take some black and just suggest little bits of rock showing through here and there. They're really only just dabs of colour, that's all. Look, little dabs of paint. Your mind will fill in the blanks naturally. And then finally, I'm just going to sit all this down with a little bit of white, and I'm just going to allow the water just to kind of merge slightly up into that land there, okay? You see, it just kind of helps to sit down just a little bit. And I think I call this finished, my friends. I'm quite happy with this. This turned out quite nice, isn't it? I'll take a little bit of pure yellow and a little white and just highlight one or two little bits here and there on this, just to kind of catch your eyes a little bit more, okay? Just that little bit. And I might even do the same just in here, look. Maybe one or two there. But I won't overdo it. And I can see probably one or two up around there. Now it's real thick paint I'm putting on, all right? That's all, just nice thick paint. And there we go. I'm not going to do any more, my friends, for fear of destroying it. So that's it, job done. Now I do have a frame. Move this right back out of the way. I have a lovely frame. I'd love to try this on a big frame and see what it looks like. Okay. There we go. Framed and finished.